Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about something I've been asked about so much over the years, and that is the Swedish death cleaning. So I'm here with Emily McDermott. Now, Emily, am I saying your last name correctly first? I'm terrible with last names.
You're fine. McDermott. Yep, that's
McDermott.
good.
Okay. Emily is a wife, a mom of two energetic boys, and a simplicity seeker. She's also the host of the top 1% globally ranked podcast, Moms Overcoming Overwhelm. So Emily, welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This is strangely, weirdly, one of my favorite things to talk about, which to some may seem morbid, but I think it actually dovetails with minimalism and simplicity quite a bit. So I'm excited to chat.
Well, it definitely does because, like I said, many people have asked me about it over the years and I'm like, well, I mean, I've heard of it. Like I kind of get the gist or the idea of what it is, but you've actually done a lot of back end stuff on it. You've done a lot of research. You've created some of your own products and stuff to help people to understand it and work through it. What is it that kind of drew you to the whole idea, before we get into what it is, of Swedish death cleaning?
Well, I had heard of the book, The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. I had heard about it and I was like, oh, I think I might want to read that because I read a lot about minimalism and simplicity and decluttering and stuff. And it's actually a pretty short book. Like I was actually happy about that because I read it when my youngest was 1 and I just didn't have the mental capacity to read really long books at that point. And the author, Margareta Magnusson, I hope I'm saying her name right, speaking of pronunciation of names, because she's from Sweden, obviously. And she puts in the book, she's between 80 and 100 years old. Like she's so cute already, she like doesn't want to give away her exact age, but it was just really something I hadn't thought much about. I had been on a minimalism journey at that point for about 5 or 6 years, but I was like, this is a different way of looking at the why behind why we are letting go of what no longer serves us. And it has to do with this concept of not wanting to not wanting to burden our loved ones. And I just had never thought of that before. And the more I got into it, I was like, this is sort of a second level of my minimalism journey. So it was kind of fun to get into for sure.
Yeah, it really is a very specific viewpoint, like a really niched in viewpoint of why you might want to declutter your stuff now or later. So we're going to talk a little bit about when you should start working or considering doing a Swedish death cleaning. But before we get into that, if you could explain a little bit about what it is. I think people have probably gotten the gist from what we've been saying, but in a nutshell, since you did read the book, what is the Swedish death cleaning?
Yes. And before I do, can you hear the fact that they're mowing outside my window? I live in a townhouse. Most of the time, we're very happy that we live in a townhouse, but we do not know when they are going to blow the leaves and do the grass. So if you can please excuse that, I will be happy to answer your question. So pretty much it's geared more towards people that are probably empty nesters and a little older than that. And it's really like, okay, when your time is coming close, what would your loved ones have to do if you died, like today or tomorrow? What would they have to do? And so practically they would have to go through your stuff, but not only that, they'd have to figure out what you want done with your stuff. Then they'd need to maybe figure out what you would want for your funeral and then have to go through all of that, the paperwork and logistics. And in the midst of this, they're grieving. And so a lot of times I'm 45. And so I have seen my parents have to do this when my grandparents were alive, but I'm kind of in this middle part where it's like, oh, I'm not really having to worry about cleaning out the homes of my elderly parents right now. But anytime I've met someone that has had to do that, it is incredibly difficult. And so I think we really have an opportunity, even in our younger years, to do this just in case something happens, because we never know, right? Tomorrow's not promised. And that way we have that peace of mind of knowing that our family isn't going to have to look through all of our stuff and I wonder if that was important to her. I wonder if she cared about it. I wonder if she would have wanted us to keep it. You take all of that guesswork out of it, which is something that really appealed to me.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned that your parents having to go through that with their grandparents. Last year, I lost 2 people in the span of, actually, I lost 3 people. But in the span of 1 year period. And it was from somebody who talks about minimalism and your stuff, you can't help but notice how people tend to handle situations like that when it comes to the belongings. And, my parents, my dad's mom, who we were all very close to, it was like a very emotional thing when she passed. She had like a whole household full of just decades and decades of stuff. And my dad didn't know what to do with this stuff. So he ended up moving it all into his garage, and it lived there for years. I mean, like 5 years, all of the stuff, like their furniture, and it was big, antique furniture is big furniture, right? So like it took over the entire garage, and it took them, I think they finally at this point cleared it out. They may have moved a couple of things back to the barn. I know they ended up selling some things and choosing which items they wanted to use, but it was a big process. My aunt, who was much younger, she was in her 50s when she passed. She's the one who passed last year. And she was very close to my grandmother, her mother. And my grandmother went a completely different direction. She had an estate sale. She only brought in 2 items that she really wanted to keep, that really reminded her of Rochelle and that she thought would, go nice in her space. And she points them out when people come over. They were super close, but she didn't cling to any of that stuff. Like she had an estate sale and the stuff was gone. And I just thought that was really interesting how, some people can take all of those things in and it almost kind of becomes a burden to them, and other people can handle it differently. But if you do something like this Swedish death cleaning, you're kind of helping to clear all that out in advance so they don't even have to make that decision. So,
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
It's helpful because even if somebody is in really good health, that's actually like the ideal time to be able to do that. In fact, my aunt, and she's in her 70s, but this past, I think, Christmas, she had a list like of all of her furniture, and she actually passed it around to the nieces and nephews because she doesn't have any children. And she said, if you want any of this stuff when I die, like sign up. It was like a sign up sheet for her furniture. So I did not sign up for anything, which was no surprise to anyone, but I thought that was really very mature of her. Not mature, but it's a different mindset in the United States than it is in other countries because we avoid talking about death. And we're so like anti-aging, and we're just like wanting to avoid the conversation around death at all costs. And other cultures, obviously Sweden, they're not like that. And so to think about, even at perfectly good health in my 40s, and I can tell my family what I want done with things when I die, that doesn't mean I think I'm going to die tomorrow, but it's just sort of this way. It's like a way of showing your loved ones that you care about them because you're taking out all of the guesswork. And then also, like, they will get the things that are most important to them that will reflect my memory without just thinking it reflects my memory because I used it or I owned it. It's like sentimental versus just old. Like those are 2 different things, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I love that you pointed out that it seems like in America, we're just we like to pretend that death doesn't really exist overall. You don't hear a lot about it. People don't like to talk about it. It's kind of considered in poor taste to sit there and talk about what you want at your funeral, and other cultures, some cultures even kind of celebrate the process, like celebrate somebody moving on to the next level, or I don't know. It's just, there's a different kind of respect for the mortality that we're all kind of experiencing. And I think that most of the things and decisions we make, I believe, come down to this fear of mortality. What do we want to experience before we die? What do we want to accomplish or be remembered for? Or how do we want to leave our mark? And there's a level of health when you can accept that and embrace that we are all mortal. We're all going to have our time. I love when I have family members who are just like they don't even seem to be afraid of the end. There are a couple that are just like, I'm not afraid. It's going to happen when it happens. And, like whenever I pass, yada, yada, and they'll talk about it. And I'm like, oh, you're just going to talk about it like that. Like it feels a little weird. But at the same time, I have so much respect for them for just being okay with it, like being able to embrace it.
Yeah. And one of the quotes, I tend to take notes on all of the books that I read because I'm kind of a dork. But one of the quotes that I love from the book is, do not ever imagine that anyone will wish or be able to schedule time off to take care of what you didn't bother to take care of yourself. No matter how much they love you, don't leave this burden to them.
Oh, man.
I love this woman. That's pretty sure. I love her. I've like never met her, but she's like the grandmother I never had. And I'm like, yes, like you have to schedule time off from your job and you're grieving and all of these things. And I think I'm glad that the book became and the concept became more known and popular in the United States, because I think it is like a wake up call to just understand that death is normal. And then we can prepare ourselves. But also, the first kind of aspect of it, of course, is the stuff, right? And it's like just making sure that we have the end in mind when we're decluttering. So an example that just came to mind is a wedding dress. Okay, Mia, tell me the truth. Do you still have your wedding dress?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And I can't remember. You do have daughter. You have at least one daughter,
I have three
right?
daughters.
Okay.
I have three daughters, and two of them are almost 18 and almost 20. So it's possible.
Okay. And we're holding on to the wedding. I'm going to coach you, right? Like we coach each other. Are you holding on to the wedding dress because we think that one of the girls might want the wedding dress?
Essentially, yeah. I think if I didn't have daughters, it would probably already be gone. And in my defense, my kids do wear my clothes a lot.
Okay, awesome. But a lot of people, they don't think about it, right? They just hold on to the dress because that's what you do. And, like they don't get rid of it. And for me, I think it's just more of I could ask my children if they think that they would be interested in using this in some way. Maybe they would make it into a different style or something like that. I have two boys, so I donated mine pretty quickly. But it's just one of these things to think about have in your mind, why am I holding on to this for the point of my children or my loved ones, or like what they would use it for, rather than, I'm just going to keep it because this is what you do. You just keep your wedding dress. So it's looking at it in a slightly different way with the intentionality of how am I serving my loved ones by holding on to this thing? Might be a question you could ask yourself. I wasn't trying to put you on the spot. I think you have an excellent reason for keeping your wedding dress, but a lot of people, they don't think about it, which was the point I'm trying to make.
No, definitely. And I think we should put each other on the spot. Anybody who's going to talk about something, they should be able to answer questions.
Yeah, totally.
So you said that you think that it could be a good idea to get started on something like that even earlier. Do you recommend that people wait until they're retired and have that extra time? Or why would you recommend that maybe they start earlier?
For me, it's just, I have had a lot of friends that have lost their loved ones in my same age group very suddenly, like aneurysm, like these things that are just instant. And all of a sudden there's a widowed mom of multiple kids that's like my age. And I think about that kind of stuff and I'm like, okay, I can tell my husband that when I die, I want my clothing donated to a certain organization, or I want, the kids to have such and such. And one of the things I did is I actually created a shared Google sheet with my husband, and I just listed those things, and to let him know the things that aren't shared, between us, but the things that are mine, where I would want them given. And it didn't take very long to do, honestly, but I've been in this minimalism path for a while now. So for someone, I think it's great to kind of get through those initial layers of stuff, then start asking yourself these questions about, would my loved ones be interested in having these things? And for anything that's important to you that you want to keep, just know maybe what organizations are important to you and maybe make a list of where you would want things to be donated. I think it could probably take, maybe a month if you're doing it in sort of like small little spurts. And it's just, I don't know. It's just a peace of mind for me to know that they don't have to guess and they just kind of know what my wishes are for that. So yeah, I would recommend, if you're able, just start thinking of, it's like that reverse decluttering concept where you think about what you're keeping. And then when you know what you're keeping, then maybe just kind of making a list of where you would want that to go if you were to pass.
I think that, to me, this whole concept kind of comes down to compassion. And while you were talking, I was thinking about like some conversations that I've had with different members of my family that are just so different from each other. I had a conversation with one member of my family, no names to be named, who was pretty much like, yeah, my kids will deal with that whenever I'm gone. I'm not going to mess with it, kind of thing, and you hear people who are like, whatever, I'm not worried about it. my kids will take care of whatever it is when they're gone. I hope they enjoy digging through all these piles because I'm not going to do it. And then I have this other person in my life, and they're like, they want so badly for everything to be taken care of, for all of their kids to be taken care of, both financially and with all, like they have their will all layered out and they've gone over it with all the family members, like super organized with the whole thing because they want to make sure that nobody is burdened when they pass away. And I can tell you just from knowing these two people, one of them is naturally a very compassionate person and the other tends to be a less compassionate person just in general. So I think that, like thinking through these things and making those decisions, it is an act of compassion. And I've heard compassion, defined as empathy plus action. When you can, and I'm not somebody who believes that we should live for our kids, right? Or that, we always come second or third or fourth and the kids and the next generation is always first. Like I believe there's some give and take there, but you can still have compassion for the next generation and where they might be in their life and what they might be going through emotionally when you pass on and see where that compassion takes you.
Yeah. And I think sometimes if you really get into sort of the visual, like in your mind's eye of if you were to pass and you were imagining looking down in your home at your family having to go through your closet. Like just imagine that right now. And they're sobbing because it's, mom died and they're, smelling your clothes and like all of this stuff. And then it's just like, oh my gosh. And just think about what your closet looks like right now that you are like, oh my gosh, I don't, I don't know where anything is. And most of the stuff has tags on it. And are they going to think that they have to sell things because they was never used? And it just really, when you have that visual, it really does I think, connect you with that compassion of like, no, I don't want my husband, I don't want my kids to have to go through that. And it does, at least in my case, spur you to take action now, which is, again, it's not like a decluttering hack. It's really just this more holistic view of our lives and our loved ones and our mortality. And it's a little bit deeper than a lot of the tips and tricks that you hear about decluttering,
You're going into it with a different mindset. So, you've talked about how this might even be effective for people who have been unsuccessful with other types of decluttering methods. Why do you think that is?
Because I think it's deeper. I mean, so many of the decluttering things focus on numbers. I mean, I've done episodes about it, and it's like a helpful way to be like, oh, the men's game and 30 things in 30 days. And it's like, it is a great way to kind of feel like you're making progress in certain areas, but it is kind of superficial. And a lot of times we're so distracted and we're so busy, it's difficult to make the time and to feel like I even have the energy. And I know when you came on my podcast, we were talking about like clutter as an energy drain and everything. Sometimes we just need to be kind of woken up, as far as like, why is this important? That deeper why that we hear about. And so for me, that's peace and that's presence and it's time and it's energy and those types of things. But it's also, now that I have this perspective, it is lifting the burden on me while I'm living, because I don't have to live with the extra stuff, and lifting the burden on the people from the people that I love. And so it just has that deeper level of significance that you don't get when it's just like, oh, I'm going to just try to throw away 30 things in 30 days. It's just a much deeper thing. And it just might resonate with somebody that just isn't connecting with some of the other guidance that's out there.
It makes you think about things differently than if you were just looking at, like you said, numbers, which I think that, like you said, those are great for they give you tangible things. They make it into a fun process, but it is like a deeper level and a different way of thinking of something when you're not just saying, okay, I'm going to get rid of 10 things. But is this something that I would want my daughter to find when I pass? Or is this something that I think that other people might find value out of? Like how long of a lifespan is this thing really worth and valuable in the grand scheme of things? And some things, it's not like everything you keep, it needs to be because your kids might use it someday. That's not what I'm saying. But, if you go into it with a mindset for the Swedish death cleaning, it really does shine a different light on the things that you're choosing to keep and the things you're choosing to let go of, or like you said, a plan for what you want done with the things that you're keeping.
One of the things that she mentions is the just for me box. And the whole point of the just for me box is it's just for you. And it's things that no one necessarily has to care about. And no one has to wonder, oh, should I keep this or not? It's just things that are important to you that you're totally okay if someone just throws it away when you pass. So an example of something I have in my just for me box is that in 4th grade, I hand wrote a 100-page novel, so incredibly riveting, called Life Has Its Ups and Downs. And I've been writing since I was about that age. And so I'm like, okay, well, I want to keep, this, but it doesn't really matter to anyone else. So yeah, that's one reason that I have that in there. And I'm like, my kids might want it, but they might not. But I don't want them feeling like, oh, I don't know whether I should keep it. So that's one of the parts of the book that I really liked. It's kind of like just matter to you, but you don't have to worry. Although you made a really good point. Maybe get rid of the things you don't want your children to find. That might be a good idea for sure.
Yeah, it's so true. And you actually have a guide essentially for following through with the Swedish death cleaning. Could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So it's 5 simple steps to start Swedish death cleaning. So it's a lot of what we talked about as far as like what is in the book, and then also kind of the additional things like your notes and wishes for your funeral, writing your own eulogy, like some of these things, and sharing passwords, or at least with a significant other in a secure way, just some of these more practical things. And yeah, so it's just kind of a helpful sort of checklist that you can use if you're interested in starting your own Swedish death cleaning journey.
I will be sure to link that down in the description. And we'll also link down in the description the link to the book for anybody who wants to go check out the book. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing more information about the Swedish death cleaning. I think that this added a lot of layers, especially for me, having never read the book myself, to what it looks like and how it could really benefit a lot of people.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Like I said, I love chatting about it. So I really appreciate you having me on.